Motion control unlocks a ton of creative possibilities when it comes to filmmaking, and that is why I consider it to be an absolute game changer. In fact, the shot that you're watching right now is only possible due to the Trexo ProKit V2 having a motion-controlled face tracking feature. Now, it's super easy to set up. All you have to do is go into the app, hit the camera submenu, and then toggle on the face tracking button, which you can find in the top left corner. But this video isn't about face tracking. It is about how you can use the Trexo ProKit V2 motion control system to get absolute crazy product shots and commercials. So with that being said, let's jump into it. All right, so we have the ProKit V2 set up in its 3-axis configuration, and we're almost ready to rock and roll. But before we start that, we gotta make sure that all the devices are paired and talking to each other. And it's really easy to do that. We can either A, use the onboard menu, which by the way is just fantastic because if you're on the fly and you don't wanna pull out your phone and you just wanna get something quick and easy, using the onboard menu makes it really fantastic. The menu system is the same for the pan tilt head as well as the slider XL, so you learn it once, you can use it all the time. Really the best thing about the onboard menu is you just hold the menu select button and a pair on screen will pop up. And I don't have to do anything else. Somehow Trexo innovation connectivity wizardry happens and it just finds itself and it will give you a little flashing message saying, hey, tilt is connected, hey, pan is connected, slide is connected. And if while you're mid-shot, one of them disconnects, you'll see the same LCD screen pop up a something's unpaired so that you know what's going on. So you're not just shocked of why your shot didn't work. So that's option A, using the onboard menu. And then option B is to use the Trexo slider app. And it's really simple to do that. All you do is select the devices you want to pair and you hit connect and pair at the bottom. It'll sync up and make all of its Trexo innovation wizardries happen, and then you're ready to rock and roll. Right, so we've just finished setting up the camera and making sure all the moving pieces work before we start set designing and prepping the drink. And it's looking so good. The power of motion control is crazy. But you might have noticed in the B-roll that I was actually setting up the shot using my hand before the shot actually started automatically rolling. And that is because the ProKit V2 has a thing called learning mode, which basically means instead of me having to fidget with an app, I can just go onto the onboard menu, click learning mode, and then maneuver it by hand and get that placement bang on how I want it. What's really nice about this is once it's saved, it's not like it just lives on the onboard menu. It will sync across all the Trexo apps. So it will be synced onto your phone app as well as your Apple Watch app. So let me give you a breakdown of what's happening in the shot. We have the camera tilting down, looking into the cup to reveal what's inside the cup. Then the camera is going to track back and tilt up to reveal the final hero shot. There's a bit of a caveat. To get the looking down shot, we need our subject underneath the camera. But for our hero shot, we need them to be kind of level. So in order to do that, we're actually gonna have to use a standing desk, which I'm gonna have to manually trigger so that it raises at the same time as the camera's tracking back. Now, it will be very difficult for me to be by the onboard menu and then run. It's gonna be a lot of chaos. And I don't wanna have my phone in my hand because that's adding things. And if I need to change something or something quickly happens on the fly, I'd rather not have my hand busy. This is where the Apple Watch comes in really clutch. I can press play and still have my hands free in case anything happens. So before we set up for the next commercial, what I really want to do is get some interesting and dynamic B-roll. And what I have in mind is a time-lapse. Now, a time-lapse is really powerful because it's a great transitioning piece because it shows the passage of time and it also has energy and dynamicism. Now, if you just have a tripod, that would work really well, but we can add an extra layer of energy to our time-lapse using the ProKit V2. And what's really cool is that we don't even need to have a time-lapse setting in our camera. So if you're using something older like a Canon 750D or other cameras that don't have a time-lapse setting, there's an easy way to bypass that if you have a shutter release cable, because every Trexo device has a shutter release input built in. And this is super easy to set up, so let me show you how. All right, so the first thing we need to do is save our positions, which we do by hitting the plus icon on the top corner of the app. We can have up to 16 saved positions, and we can take reference photos so that we never get confused between the different positions. Once we're done with that, we just double click on the number to add it to the timeline, and then we're ready to go. Now, the time-lapse menu is going to create a whole different layout in the app. First thing you'll notice is that on the top it says time-lapse duration. Don't worry about that just yet. We'll get to that a little later. First thing we need to do is make sure that in our video settings, it matches our camera recording settings. So my camera is set to the shutter speed of 125, which is good. The next step is video duration. How long do we want the time-lapse to last for? I think I want about a 10 to 15 second time-lapse. So I'm going to go 15 because I'd rather have a little bit more. And you'll see at the bottom, it's done the calculation of how many photos it's going to have to take. And this is what's really cool because that is going to take those photos for us using the shutter release cable. And then comes the next bit, which is frames per second. I'm shooting 25 frames per second, so that's perfect. And then from 1 to 2, so from our first position to our second position. Now we get to time-lapse duration. Do we want this to be a super quick, rapid time-lapse that it's capturing? Or do we have lots of time and we want this to be really gradual and dynamic? Now, you might be thinking, oh God, I have to do math. Don't worry, if you input something that's completely impractical, let's say 1 second, as soon as I hit save, it's gonna be like, warning, time-lapse settings, impossible in current settings. It's basically gonna tell you, you crazy, don't do that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna adjust for it. Now, I think the whole motion of me setting it up is gonna take me about 10 minutes, and we're gonna let the time lapse run for that. So hit save, it's gonna give you a message to say, are you sure, are you ready to go? Press OK, and it's gonna move to the first position. Now, if you're not super ready to go, as soon as you hit that because you wanna be in the frame, you can just hit pause, get yourself in the position, and then start the time lapse, which is what we're gonna do. We finished setting up, and you might notice that the slider is not in the typical horizontal slider position. In fact, the Slider XL has a 3/8 mounting option at the bottom so that you can go into what they call vertical mode, which is like this. And it's so easy. All you do is screw in a tripod plate or a stand at the bottom there, and then basically you have to do this very important step. Go onto the onboard menu or in the app and toggle on incline mode. If you don't toggle on incline mode, the motor might not have the strength to pull your camera rig up or even hold the weight in the same place, and it might just crash down. Now, there's one other thing about using the Trexo slider in vertical mode. The max weight that it can handle and still move an object up and down is 1.5 kg, and it can handle 2.5 kg if you only plan on moving the slider down. That's important to know because if you have the pan tilt set up fully, that weighs 2 kg, so you won't actually be able to use that. So depending on your camera rig, you might be able to use one of the pan tilt heads to have some extra movement and dynamicism, but you won't be able to have both. Now, if you're using a camera setup like mine, you might want to weigh it to see if you actually might be able to use a pan tilt combo. Okay, so here's my idea. We're gonna have the camera come down using the vertical mode as I explained, but we're also gonna have the can rotate, and at the exact point where the camera's in the middle, we're gonna be able to reveal the product's hero face. And we can do this because not only do the pan tilt remote heads work at moving the camera, but there also comes a turntable top attachment in the ProKit V2, which we can use to turn the pan tilt remote head into a product display. To do this, we simply open up the app, hit the menu button in the top left corner, and navigate to the turntable mode. You'll see a completely different user interface up here, and by default you'll be in the photo mode, which allows us to have the turntable turn in specific increments based on our camera settings. Then we're going to go to video mode, which allows us to control how fast the turntable completes a cycle as well as the direction of the turn. For this one, we're going to have it in clockwise and moving relatively fast. Now for the third commercial, we're going to be doing some stop motion. So the way we have it rigged up is we have the Slider XL with our camera, and it's going to go up and slowly come down so that we just have the logo while I move some cashews into the bar as if they're going in to make the bar. This is so easy to do with the Trexo system because there's two ways that we can do it. One, we can use the app, which has its own dedicated stop motion area so that we can control everything to make sure that I'm not having to interact with the camera, which could introduce the tiniest micro movements, making the stop motion not look as clean or as professional. But also they have on the Apple Watch menu a dedicated stop motion slot. So if I really want to be hands-on and not have to pull out phones and pockets, and I just want to be touch, move around, they make that so simple. The second way is that you can use the USB-C input and connect to Dragonframe, and it's really simple to connect. All you have to do is just go to the Dragonframe website and go look through their tutorial on the motion control section, and within a few minutes you'll know how to do it. You'll set it up in 2 seconds, and then you'll be ready to rock and roll, which means that you can control everything from a bigger screen and leave everything here intact and only come in to manipulate the stop motion objects that you need to manipulate. So with that being said, let's try making a stop motion product commercial. And that is how you can use the Trexo ProKit V2 to not only create some really dynamic B-roll shots, but to capture some interesting product shots as well. And the best part about it is when you're done, you can just pack it away and it fits beautifully in this compact carry case that they provide.